you serious?
Hello and welcome back to my channel where I'm going to be going full into spoilers on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. If you haven't seen the film yet, I don't know, maybe stick around. It's, there's not a lot to this movie, to be honest, to spoil. Not as much as I thought there would be. But I do recommend, go out, see it, let me know what you think, and then you can come back. And make sure also to check out my non-spoiler review. If you watch that review, you know I'm not a fan of this film. I did not particularly enjoy it. I want to start with the scene that I feel like is probably the biggest spoilery moment of the movie. And I also think is the scene that is the epitome of what Multiverse of Madness represents to me, which is the Illuminati Fight. This is a brutal exhibition of carnage and violence that exists to shock and surprise you in the brief moment that you're witnessing this carnage on screen, only to feel shallow and hollow in reflection of it. Watching Wanda kill all of these members of the Illuminati right after they're introduced, I could not believe what was happening. Not only because you were taking a character that represented mental health and pain and suffering and grief, and you were twisting it to represent that as being horrific, as being ugly. The fact that you were doing that, but then you were also taking all these characters that we just spent all this time introducing just to kill them, just for them to be fodder. It was just the most obvious plot, pointless cul-de-sac that I think I've seen in a movie in some time. Take the Suicide Squad by James Gunn, which did a very similar thing, where they introduce all these members of the team just to kill them in the opening scene. Why that scene works is A, it is the opening scene, it's the beginning, so you haven't really grown an attachment to these characters, and it's also establishing the stakes for the film. You now know as an audience member what to expect from the rest of the movie. Here, it's happening in the middle of the movie. Our main protagonist isn't involved in the fight. And these are characters that you do have a fondness for. Maybe not these specific versions necessarily, but you do have a connection to Lashana Lynch in the MCU, to Haley Atwell. I mean, Captain Carter was a great episode of What If? What was the point of it if you're just gonna kill her here? And then wasting the fan expectations of Reed Richards, played by John Krasinski, and Patrick Stewart returning just to kill them. I just could not get over the fact that the only purpose these characters had were to die at the hands of a character who should not be associated with the murders of these characters. Wanda Maximoff, at this place in her journey, should not be killing people in as horrific fashion as she does. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. And what's annoying is that I think that you could have done something similar to this. There are a lot of easy fixes to this movie that would just have fixed most of the problems here. If you want Scarlet Witch to be the villain, then why not just have it be a Wanda variant? Why don't you have there be a different Scarlet Witch who is the horror movie villain you want the character to be? And then you have Strange, who has his general ethos of in the grand calculus of the multiverse, your pain and suffering is a small price to pay. That idea, that morsel, that was seen in the Michael Stuhlbarg scene, which is the best scene in the movie, which I couldn't believe that it was, but because it was actually a scene about ideas that confronted our characters and allowed a conflict to derive and a reflection for them to process. Did things that we kind of expect scripts to do. If you had that be the conflict, and then our Wanda was trapped in between Strange, who is saying, this is not right, this woman is evil, and Wanda recognizing the horror of this other Wanda, but also seeing the pain and suffering that another version of herself is experiencing. And that's what maybe twists her and maybe gets her to do some of the things that this movie wants her to do. That would have been completely understandable. But the problem with it is that I don't believe that this Wanda would make these choices. And even if she did, all of the growth, the transitional period that morphed her into this Scarlet Witch is off screen. We are introduced to Wanda here as this blood-craving, murderous maniac, as if this has always been what this character is defined by. It uses the Darkhold as a deus ex machina off screen to get this character to where Raimi and Waldron want her to be. And it just felt wrong to me. And again, I will say, Raimi knows how to move the camera. The Illuminati fight scene, a lot of the action, has some nice visual flourishes. but they just feel weightless. I think the movie's probably at its strongest before Wanda's introduced, and the first act is fine, but I do think that the energy is lacking. Where any other time Doctor Strange has appeared in an MCU movie, it always feels like he's going to be a burst of energy, that he's going to inject the film with a lot of momentum and drive. Here, where the Shuma-Gorath fight should have been like we're running at a full tilt. It kind of felt like we were just jogging in the park, that we were in cruise control. It just felt a little tired, and that probably is because Strange wasn't being pushed by any external force. If he essentially can do anything, and his powers are unlimited, and you haven't done anything to establish character motivation and a want versus need dynamic for him, then there really isn't anything to the action scene. Great action scenes advance character, they advance story, they advance the conflict. And all of the action here doesn't do any of that, which is what makes for the uninspired connectivity that I had to all of the action in the movie. There were definitely moments where the powers were at top notch, and to see these characters wield such power was a lot of fun. I loved when we see Wanda trying to take over the minds of the people at Kamar-Taj, and then she comes in from behind and she goes, run. Like, that was great. The music fight was okay. Some of the visuals were great. I loved when we went to that world where there was the incursion and the two worlds were colliding, and you had the cinematography of like the water and the endless staircase. Some of the visuals were great. I just wish we got more time in them. That was the other thing, is that we get this rush of multiverses during one montage, but then we kind of only stay in like one or two multiverses the entire movie. Like, compare that to like Everything Everywhere All at Once, where we have like a new multiverse every 5 minutes, and you don't feel lost, you don't feel like the movie's messy, but you're actually utilizing all of the tools that you do and the promise of the multiverse. The story also has such gaping holes. There's a lot of parallels that the film could have made in terms of Strange and Wanda and how they view power and the sacrifices that they have to make or others have to make. Nothing's done with that. And then also like Wanda and America Chavez, like they have a lot of parallels in terms of feeling that they don't have control of their power and that their family has to find them, but their family isn't around anymore. Nothing is done with those. I've said enough between these two reviews about all the logical inconsistencies with Wanda, but within the Doctor Strange world, I mean, Christine is in passing in this film. She doesn't really have a purpose to be there, more or less. Mordo is completely forgotten. Chiwetel Ejiofor literally walks in and out of this movie, and you're just like, oh, right, Mordo, oh, bye. That's literally what it was like. And then what if, the whole idea of like, oh, these are all different multiverses and we're going to explore them. Nope. Peggy Carter comes in, she says, I can do this all day, and then she gets cut in half. And yeah, it's shocking, it's cool, sure, whatever. I don't think characters should be there just for their unitary plot functions. Characters should have their own agency, and if you're going to include them, their only purpose should not be to service other characters. And that's what all the Illuminati cameos were. That's what most of these characters were. I constantly kept asking myself, what does this mean? There's no discernible signifiers or connectivity. When Strange possesses the body of the Defender Strange and he becomes Zombie Strange, I'm just like, does this mean anything thematically? No, it's just a cool, all right. There's a lot of plot holes. Like, why The Darkhold is this awful, terrible book? Why would it have a problem with possessing the dead? Some of that was just like, really? And all of these issues would have been solved if the movie had a succinct story at its center. I saw a lot of people in the reviews saying the amount of homework that this movie asks is too much. It exacts too much of a toll to enjoy the film. And I, for one, was like, okay, really? Like, we've been on the MCU train for a while. Like, at this point, like, if you don't know that you're gonna have to watch some of these movies to get these other ones, like, I don't know what to tell you. But having seen the movie, I think the reason why the homework idea is so pronounced with this one is because there is no story. I've brought family members to No Way Home and Avengers Endgame, and they enjoyed them completely, even though they had never seen another Marvel movie. And that's what Marvel has always been able to do well. It's something that I think Spielberg also did well with his movies. Jaws is a really great insight into man versus nature, and the characters are so developed and complex. The best scene in the movie is three characters regaling old stories on a boat together. It's a really well-made Hitchcock homage. But for the people who just want a shark attack movie, Spielberg delivers a shark attack movie. And that's what I think Marvel has always done. It rewards the fans that have always gone on the journey. But for the people who are just coming to this chapter or were dragged by family members, they can still enjoy it. And I think for this one, you can't because there's no connection. You're not on the journey with any characters. You don't have any allegiance or alignment with anybody in this movie. So you're just watching things happen detached from the actual story itself. This story doesn't belong to anybody. Why in 2022 we're making a Scarlet Witch movie and yet she is playing second fiddle to the male characters is perplexing.
It doesn't seem fair.
I mean, why can't this be Scarlet Witch's movie? Why did this have to be a Doctor Strange sequel? Why is that in a story that's so focused on Wanda, be it a very flawed depiction of Wanda? I would think after Captain Marvel made $1 billion, Star Wars The Force Awakens is the highest grossing movie at the domestic box office of all time with a female protagonist in Rey. Why is it that we can't have this movie be Scarlet Witch in the Multiverse of Madness? And yeah, I cannot believe they killed Wanda. I mean, granted, she'll come back. I think everybody in the Marvel Universe will come back. But the fact that this movie ends, this singular story ends, with the death of Wanda, it was the easiest choice. It was the easiest way. There was no nuance. There was no depth. It was just, oh, Wanda has done all these terrible things. Well, then we'll kill her because that's the easiest way to end this story. It felt lazy. I really didn't like it. It was probably the most shocking thing of the whole movie, aside from the Illuminati fight, was the fact that this movie actually killed Wanda Maximoff. As far for the post-credit scenes, the second one was just a fun gag with Bruce Campbell, which it was nice to see him again in a Marvel movie. The mid-credit scene introduced Charlize Theron as Clea, which the scene was fine. I hope the costume is given a little bit more of an update. It kind of felt like a cosplay Comic-Con level costume. But I think Charlize Theron is a really likable actor. So I'm interested in the future of this character, but I do hope that another screenwriter writes it. I mean, to be honest, I really do think this is it. I don't think Michael Waldron should be offered another script, and he definitely needs to stay 100 miles away from Scarlet Witch. So that's my spoiler review for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Let me know your own spoiler thoughts down below, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to not miss any new videos from Spoilers Ahead with Anthony Post. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you at the movies.